I guess
You
we're live.
ready? Okay, hold on 1 second now.
We are live.
Yeah. Uh, Darrell, are we running?
We live.
Okay. Look, brothers and sisters, it gives me great pleasure to bring Brother Reggie Mayberry with us today. He's going to do a tape that I have been waiting for him to do for a long time. I won't give, we did the history on part one, so I won't waste any time with his history. I'm just going to bring him to you because he is anxious to give this to all of you. And I'm going to ask you, go to Cash Reggie Mayberry. We're going to be putting it up there. And let the brother know you appreciate him. You appreciate his study, his work. And we owe him a debt that we can't repay him. Brother Reggie.
Peace to the family. It is exciting for me to be back on one of the shows in which I care deeply about. Many of you have seen me on Black News 102, Sonetta Studios. That is one of the shows that I frequent, and the audience treats me well. And then you've seen me on Baba TV, and I have been on Dagger Squad. But I have a long relationship with Reverend Clemson Brown Minister Clemson Brown, that we had discussed in the other episodes. And he has been asking me and trying to find out, is there anyone who can deal with ancient Kemet and quantum physics, the deepest thoughts of ancient Kemet as we know it, which we call ancient Egypt sometimes, or we have until very recently. And so I have put together a presentation that I'm certainly going to repeat and add different information for some of the other channels. But I want to I want to unveil for you all some things about ancient Egypt from an African scholar, scientist, thinker, right? Who have studied under Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Dr. Jeffries, learned Medu Neter from Dr. Riketi Amen, the most famous and important African scholar in the medical.
Isn't it supposed to be Reggie?
In our time period is Dr. Riketi Amen. And I have been privileged to take with her introductory Medu Neter, and it was because of her skill set giving it to us, myself and others like Infidisi Jehudimas and others, that we are able to have a skill set that allows us to think deeply about ancient Kemet. So we owe her a debt of gratitude, and I don't know how it could be repaid. But what I find, Brother Clemson, is that, you know, we pay others a lot of money for our work in our scholarship. We pay others to learn from. We go to Ivy League universities, we go to these brand name universities, and we pay $80,000, $100,000, $200,000 for degrees, and then we have to go into the workplace and we're just regular. What I find is that we don't support each other. We don't support our own scholarship. My scholarship, as vast as it will be on this show, should be worth something. But unfortunately, the minds of our people, we would buy automobiles and ace bottles and purses and but information from your own people is not good enough. And so it wasn't that Dr. Yosef Ben Jochanan died broke. Dr. Yosef Ben Jochanan did not die broke. But what did happen is he like John Jackson, like others, died without the love of the people. They didn't cherish him enough to come visit him often, to keep him company in his old age. And that is but we say we love Dr. Ben's work. So I'm going to carry on a tradition of theirs in a different time period. This is 2020. My master teachers are no longer here except for Dr. Jeffries and Professor Small. But Dr. Jacob Carruthers is a master teacher. He's no longer here. Dr. Richetti is, and you should support her. But many of the master teachers are no longer here. And so I'm going to begin to answer some of the questions for our people. And I'm not doing it for free. I'm doing it, Brother Clipson Brown, that these people find it in their they find it in themselves to support me and others, like Dr. Richetti and others. So let me begin this presentation. The name of this presentation is Ancient Egyptian Origin of Quantum Physics. Now I could say ancient Kemet origin of quantum physics, because that's what I really mean. But because this is on the YouTube, I want a wide body of people to see this, right? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to settle it for not only our people who take us for granted, but I'm selling it for the other groups of people who have stolen our legacy. So let me see if I can share my screen and begin this presentation.
Okay, I'm gonna. All right, as soon as you're ready.
Okay, so I'm going to. I'm going to put it on widescreen. So slideshow from current slide. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, great. Great.
Okay, are you?
I'm sharing. You should come up.
Okay, there it is. All right.
Okay. This is a slide share format, so there, of course, may have been some quick additions where I didn't spell check. The ancient Egyptian origin of quantum physics, or the ancient Kemet origin of quantum physics. And what I have is two versions of elementary wave-like particle concept of the ancient Egyptians. And it was called Kemenu. Kemenu is this city of eight, and then which they call Hermopolis. And then in the city of eight lived the eight, which is the Kemenu, which is the which we know as the Octad. The Octad, the eight, right? And the Europeans frame it in the context of Hermopolis and the Octad, and we frame it in the context of the Kemenu. Where this all started? Well, it started a long time ago, but then I got my thoughts together and I kind of like focused on what I understood about science and ancient Kemet. And so in 2010, you see me with Professor Leonard Jeffries, my mentor, and I go to his house and I'm talking to him about this concept. And so in 2010, people don't know, you only probably got about 5 minutes of a YouTube video. And it wasn't one of these things where it was paid with a lot of advertisement. YouTube was just beginning around 2010. So I went to Dr. Jeffrey's house and I said, Dr. J, I got 5 minutes. I want to put this on camera. I want to unpack it. So I started this concept around the secret of the Ankh. And you could see that if you type the secret of the Ankh on the YouTube, I have 472,000 views on this one video. Most people don't get 472,000 views on their whole channel. I have 472,000 views on this one concept. And I got a lot of good feedback, and then I got some very negative criticism. And the criticism actually came from my people, our people, Black people. And the criticism was basically on what they believe the Ankh is and what I said the Ankh is. And then I'm like, well, for me, the Ankh is a symbol that represents that represents aspects of life, right? And I don't care what it looks like. I care about the language. I care about the words. I don't care about the. I'm not an idol worshiper. I don't care about what you think that this symbol does, because I just think that it's language. It tells you about life, and life is sacred. But I don't. So I got a lot of terrible feedback. So then from the so-called spiritual groups. So then I repackaged it and I called it Kiminu, the Essential Cosmology for Africans. And then I presented my paper to the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization. And if you look hard enough, you could probably find that in some of the videos on YouTube, or you could buy it from ASCAP. I'm going to take that whole lecture that I did further. Some of my resources for this, David Klotz's book on that, sorry, I misspelled that, The Adoration of the Ram, not admiration, but The Adoration of the Ram, 5 Hymns to Amun, Ray from the Hibbis Temple, 2006. Some other ancient Egyptian foundational, essential works, the Urkendom. I listed links. I borrowed something from an author, online author, who is very, very good, who does something called hynodology. And I borrowed some other pieces in which you will actually you will see, and I try to give people credit. Okay. Kiminu cosmology is a paradigm, and I'm explaining what a paradigm is, and it aids us in intellectual warfare. Joe Barker, Dr. Joe Barker, is a European, and he's a master of a concept called paradigms. And he says in his book, paradigms are sets of rules, written and unwritten, that control how our mind solves problems. If you're not smart enough or haven't learned a rule, you'll be blind to see how to solve a problem. Change the rules, and the future is created. The future is always created when the rules change. At any given time, there are multiple paradigms competing to solve a problem. These paradigms can be graphed against each other, right? To find out, one, who is changing the rules, like what technology, right? And sometimes this scenario happens where groups of people can destroy a paradigm because they could see it solving problems. So El Hajj Malik El Shabazz was a paradigm. He was killed. King, Martin Luther King, he was killed. The NAACP was taken over, integrated. Why? Because the Europeans could see the rules changing in Black America. And then they were able to sabotage because there's competing paradigms happening all at one time. I hope anybody who has some university training and who have done some work can understand what I'm saying. So when new leaders emerges in our community, it could be seen. It could be seen by their talks. It could be seen by the people around them that are grouping up with them. And they could be supported by our people, or they could be poisoned and assassinated by the enemy. This is the nature of paradigms. But anytime that you change the rules, you can change the future. The current system does not allow the rules to be changed because they want to control the future. So if you could control the rules, you could control the future. Our African rule changers, Cheikh Anta Diop, George M. James, Benjo Cannon, John Henry Clark, Dr. Karanga, Dr. Theophilo Banga, Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Riketti Ahmed, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, and so many more, Dr. Amos Wilson, right? And so many on the African continent, Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, Thomas Sankofa, and I mentioned Malcolm X. And many of our rule changers, they get assassinated, they get targeted, they get destroyed. So we have to understand this. But these groups of people have allowed us in ancient Kemet to solve some of the unsolvable problems they fashioned in their mind that the Africans, I also forgot Dr. Martin Delaney and Tenor Furman, right? These are precursors to this group of people. And then, of course, Arthur Schomburg, who's in this area. But these people allowed us to solve these unsolvable problems of connecting us to great African civilizations, classical African civilizations, particularly ancient Egypt, and to solve the problems in our minds that we were the people that created thought in the world. And one of those thoughts happens to be quantum physics. Physics itself, classical physics, but also quantum physics. Let's change the rules a little bit. This is actually the map of the world, not the map of the world seen from space, but the map of civilization, the map of thought, the map of ideas. And it starts on the right side around South Africa, the San people, right? And because of the highlands, the waters flow from south to north, and so civilization flowed from south to north. Civilization flowed from south to north, and so civilization flew all the way down till it impacted North Africa, and then it went over to Canaan in the Saudi Peninsula, and then civilization flowed into Europe. Now, this includes early man too. Early man did leave Homo heidelbergensis, left Africa and created the Neanderthal, but civilization flowed this way. And then we find civilization finding itself in India, ultimately getting to Australia. And then we see civilization at some point finding itself into North America and South America, which is the last populated of the continents. And this is how civilization flowed. And this is how thought flowed. It flew. And if you can only see this if you change the rules. In Africa, particularly in the Nile Valley, and there were points of the time in the Nile Valley where the Nile Valley was not inhabitable, and that was around probably the period of the Younger Dryas, certainly in the Ice Age and the Younger Dryas, where parts of Africa was flooded. And we know that in Central Africa around Lake Chad was a huge waterway. And we also know that African waterways flew from east to west and west to east, right? As well as it flowed from the north, from the south all the way down. But African civilization along the Nile, when it began populated, it began walking its way from the south to the north. And in this, as it did this around the period of, let's say, 4,000 years ago, you have several concepts of thought happening. And I'm listing these thought patterns, these cosmologies. The Nice cosmology we know is proto-dynastic. The An or Uwan, which is called the Heliopolitan myth. The Shapaka, which is the Memphite, with talking about Ptah as the supreme creator. The Kimenu cosmology was developed in Hermopolis. The Amun-Re and Karnak and Khnum, we also know that Khnum was a pre-dynastic concept. Forget about the issue of the potter's wheel. The potter's wheel concept, a lot of people who study Sumerian myths and stuff say, well, the potter's wheel was developed in ancient Sumer, so that concept must have came from ancient Sumer. We're really not talking about man being created on a potter's wheel. More so, the cosmology is more about humans being created by elemental particles of the earth, right? And a potter's wheel was the latest invention of the time, and so they added that. So let's see. So this map is actually the map and origins of creation myths, which is cosmologies, which is precursors to, let's say in this case, quantum physics. I put up this chart before in the other lecture, and I want to go over it again. In quantum physics, there's something called the theory of everything. Quantum mechanics, quantum physics. There's a theory of everything. This is this is on the right side. This is all known forces. And I showed the standard model table the other time. So I'm not going to necessarily show it again. But, science tells us about gravity, electromagnetism, strong force, weak force, matter, Higgs boson. And they create this concept of fields, and they try to find a relationship of the fields. Whether there's a real relationship or not, science, this is only theoretical. We don't know. But what we do know is that these fields have been proven to exist. On the left side is the African theory of everything. So I pose Nile Valley evolution cosmology to modern scientific theories, the Kimenu cosmology to quantum physics, Nice cosmology to string theory, the Inu to classical physics, the Khnum to human creation, atomism to quantum and atomic theory, Kepera to abiogenesis, the Ptah cosmology and the Memphite, with concepts of spitting and masturbating and bringing into life in a cosmic form, concepts of abiogenesis and DNA and evolution, the coffin text and the Pert Imheru, that whole drama of weighing the heart against the feather truth, I pose it to basically simply energy conservation. Attune the primordial hill, atom particles and matter, God particles, multiple cosmologies as once is everything that I'm talking about. Then there's Nut and the universe, right? There's basically gravity and dark matter, strong forces and weak forces, how they pose in a kind of isolated area, just in isolate, right? And then you have Apep and Ma'at and Isfet, and you're talking about chaos and balance, and you're talking about concepts of normalization. And so then you have Ra and atomism, which is light, photons, waves, particles. And then you have a set Neb and Nebhet, and those I pose to quantum entanglement. What I'm saying is that the ancient Egyptians posed these ideas. Science just experimented and decided. But the fact of the matter is that all of these concepts are in the African theory of everything. So those with a physics background, I want to add some points. And so we've heard a lot about Dr. Oyibo, who is our, how can I say, super expert mathematician and physicist, right? And people have been listening and watching his works, and so have I. But I want to pose something a little bit different, because I know something that people who don't study Kemet knows. They may know mathematics and science, but they may not know ancient Egyptian cosmology. So I want to add some concepts of physics, quantum physics, to the discussion. The ancient Kemetu, that's the ancient Egyptians, the people, first discovered there existed beautiful formulas and ideas that repeated over all aspects or large aspects of nature. The ancient Egyptians posed that there were beautiful formulas that repeated. They did that. They called this, they noticed this in something called the Tepesep, the correct method. They posed in a cosmology, duality, triads. They became today's, things like this became today's matter and antimatter. They posed into triads, or concepts of forces deriving from other forces, fields arising from other fields. For example, Asar and Aset, Heru derives from Asar and Aset. This concept of the triads. Forces and fields and ideas are born from previous. Today we understand how physics impacts chemistry, and that impacts biology. The Kemetu understood, like we do, that mathematics was a language that ideas could be expressed in. Mathematics is a language that ideas could be expressed in, and ideas can be proven in. And the ancient Egyptians proved that because they built pyramids. They understood how to understand the circumference, the diameter. They understood how to get measurements out of a circle. They understood something that modern physicists understand, that little things affect bigger things, right? But not necessarily affect directly even bigger things. And so when we understand physics, and we understand chemistry, and we understand biology, we understand things like atoms affect the chemical makeup of things, but the chemical makeups don't necessarily affect the atoms. And how do we know this about the ancient Egyptians or the Kemetu? They encoded this in their alphabet. Anybody who studies ancient Egyptian language knows that uniliterals, the single sounds, become biliterals, and the biliterals become triliterals, right? But the resulting words don't ever influence the uniliterals, right? The uniliterals influence the biliterals and triliterals, and they also understood that the syntheses don't influence the uniliterals, right? The uniliterals influence them, but at some point, the uniliterals don't really matter when there's actual speech and concepts and thought. So little things do affect big things. Big things don't affect necessarily little quantum matter, and the little things don't necessarily affect the bigger things. And so when we look at things like quantum physics, and we look at something like how you could put a magnet on top of a superconductor, and the magnet will levitate over a superconductor, right?
Yeah.
We never ever thought, did the ancient Egyptians express those concepts? And we find that they did. They posed those ideas with the concepts of Shu and Tefnut, Geb and Nut, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of that. And these are all concepts stolen from ancient Africa and ancient Egypt. Lots of times when we expressed ancient culture, ancient Egypt, we skipped over one of the most important and ancient of the ideas, and her name is Neith. And Neith is pre-dynastic, and Neith is a female. And Neith becomes the concept that all the other concepts build off of. Neith is a principal figure in cosmology, in which she is closely associated with Mehet Weret, right? And is the mother of Re. Neith's function in its cosmology seems to be carried forward the creative impulses of Mehet Weret, integrated determinacy and articulation, and to be the bearer of Mehet Weret's primordial authority in the later stages of the cosmos. Hence, Neith is regent of Mehet Weret, and that the cow Mehet Weret is their sais as Neith. For her own part, however, Neith's personality, the creative potency of the primordial waters, not as a passive substrate, but is the very agent of the emergence of the cosmos, and particularly through an identification between the flow of the primordial waters and the flow of time. A hymn from Esna states that Neith, the female, she fashions the world in her form of goddess who reaches the limits of the universe in her material form of the liquid surface in her name of unlimited duration. The extension of the water which makes eternity, hey, the stream which fashions everlastingness. Neith's independence and autonomy are emphasized in her demiurgic activity. That is, it said that Neith is both feminine and masculine, 2/3 masculine and 1/3 feminine, both mother and father, who inaugurated birth when birth had not been. Having appeared from herself, the primordial register in which Neith's cosmology activity occurs can be seen from the fact in the version of the Esma, Neith brings forth Re, the principle of cosmic order, and Aposis, the principle of entropy. I could go on and on about it. I've left you the link from Hynodology that gives you the actual text. But you will see later concepts of Aset, Nebhet, Sekhet, Kanun, Neptune, Minhet, Heka, Tutu. You will see all of these other cosmologies. But the Neith cosmology is important in that it is the most ancient before it was reworked in the gnomes to other concepts. But these concepts of a primordial water, a wave, a field, right? That create matter, that create particles. That this concept, before it was born in the labs of Europe, it was conceptualized by the African. So as Egypt changes, and rethinks these ideas, Neith's cosmology derives itself into other cosmologies. And now we get to another primordial concept, which is the eight, Hermopolis, the Kemenu. And I'm going to read some concepts. First, after the Nice cosmology seemed to give rise to another cosmology called the Kemenu, or the eight Hey infinite chaos gods, were the primary and most ancient forces. They live in the city of eight. They're called the Kemenu. From this primary forces, other forces of netters are created. The eight, who are they? Nunu net, ket ket ket, hey hey het, amon amonet. Now, ancient Egypt is so incredible is that they told you what these eight did. Nun and Nunet dealt with the watery wave that creates everything. Kekado, koot, depending on how you want to begin to pronounce these concepts, because we don't know what the vowels are, but some people seem to find power in kook and kuket, right? Rather than kek and ket. It represents a type of darkness, dark energy, dark matter. Hey, het, infinity, right? Uncountable, infinite speeds. And then amunet, which is the hidden, the thing that we really can't express. And maybe the mother and father of all these forces, or maybe another derived forces. So again, with the interaction of waves and fields, in physics, quantum physics, light is created between the interaction of fields and waves connecting with each other. Ancient Egyptian Kemetu mythology posed that the eight Hay gods interacted like waves and fields, like in quantum physics, and they created light. So it's interesting. The concepts that we call modern day science has these ancient roots that are hidden. For example, the Ptolemaic text from the second pylon of Karnak temple, the Kemenu, the Akdad, is labeled as, well, whatever, I guess Kemenu, the first primeval ones, the sons and daughters of Iri Ta, the makers, of the light land. The males and females they are the males and females who created light, who fashioned in the Apet by their fathers, Tatanen, in his workshop of the first moment, which is Septepi. The Agdad, they give praise to Re when he illuminates earth for them. So the ancient Egyptians posed that these Kemenu, these primeval ones, these males and females, because the Akdad is, or the Kemenu is both males and females, that in between them, they created light. And then in between them, they created maybe light waves and photons. But in between them, they also created Re. And Re illuminated the earth for them. This is ancient Egyptian quantum physics conceptual thought. Before the European put it in his lab, that they posed these forces, that there were forces and fields that interacted with each other to give light. If that is not profound in itself. Now, the difference between myself and a lot of they're not my peers, but people that I see presenting, is that many of them, except for Dr. Mario Beatty and Ifedici Jehudimas, many of them don't have access to the text, nor do they have access to the text, nor can they read the meta nature associated with the text to see if it says what it says. So today we're going to do different type of exercises, because we're going to look at what the meta nature says, not with the English. Because I'm not asking you to trust me, and I'm not asking you to trust the English, right? I'm asking you, if you got metal nature skills, to see it as the Africans saw it. So as we go into that, as we derive these concepts, I'm just reading more concepts. So from Kurt Cease, Sete, I get beat up because I don't speak German, and Dr. Mario Beatty, he speaks Germany. So I say cursiv, and he says, no, it's sete. Okay, okay. And because why? Our scholar, Dr. Mario Beatty, learned to read German from Dr. Theophilo Banga. And here's the translation. They step upon the primeval mound and create light, as fathers and mothers who made the light. Indeed, as the radiance of their hearts. They are the fathers and mothers who came into being in the beginning, who gave birth to the Son, who created a tomb. Now, this is a translation. This is a translation from a text in ancient Kemet. But here I am showing you that all through ancient Egyptian thought, that they sensed that forces and fields created light. Oh, so now the jig is up. The jig is up when you have the Medu Neter, and you could find it in the text. And so I critique all the time, as many as you know, the spiritual people. The spiritual people, they talk in English. They don't show you where the text is. They want you to believe them. And I you know, as you know, I have critiques on those, that type of scholarship, right? That's like reading the King James Version and then not knowing that the King James Version has other elementary texts associated, for example, Aramaic and Hebrew and Greek, and you want to show me the Aramaic, you want to show me the King James Version Bible, and you want to prove it that God said, "Let there be light" in English, where we know that English was became the language of the Christians from the Latins, from the Catholics, from Latin to Rome, and then we know during that time it was the Aramaic, the Greek, and the Hebrew, right? And we know that if there was a Christ, he spoke or he knew of Aramaic and Greek, more so than probably Hebrew, because the Hebrews, we know that they were liberated from Babylon by the Persians, and then they found themselves in that area of Palestine, and we know that Alexander the Great comes in and he conquers the Persians, and now we have the period in which the Christ lives. But they don't know the history. The same with the ancient, the people who say they study ancient, say they study Kemet. They like to find text from Europeans and say it is true without even checking to see if it's true. So let's just do this. Oh, you 8 gods who are in the charge, who are in charge of the chambers of the sky. So you Kemenu, you 8. And the text looks like this. So you see a man saying, "Oh," speaking. And then he's saying, "Hey." He's saying the Kemenu. This is like hey, the symbol of the hey god, right? That's why they get chaos gods from hey. The infinite ones. And then you count 8, right? And then you see this word equal, right? And then you end up seeing the concept of the sky. So you see, you ate, 8, and you are in charge of the chambers of the sky. And then the text in the coffin text spelled 76, which is the text that fuses the 8 with the 9, the chaos gods or the Kemenu with the derived other 9 gods, which we call the Ennead, right? This coffin text spell is an important text, and it begins ascending to the sky, going abroad on a bark of ray, and becoming a living God. And so here's the text right here where it says Perit, Pet, right? It says Hu, Ha, and then it goes on and you see the bark in, and then you see Ray, and then Kepera, becoming the netter, right? Becoming a netter, and then living, becoming a living God. So if you can't read Medu Neter, and if you can't prove to your audience that you know in the context of Medu Neter, check out. Just check out. Stop it, because our people deserve more. So then we go to see the text itself. Oh, you eight chaos gods who are in charge of the chambers. And so we read it from this line over here. Oh, you eight chaos gods who's in charge of the chamber. So we see it. And then it says, of the sky who shew from the flux of his members. So then we look for shew, which is here, and we look for the flux of his members. And the F is his members, right? Who put together the ladder of shew, right? So this is talking about putting together the ladder of shew. And then I'm gonna read the text. I'm not gonna read the Medu Neter. I left the Medu Neter for you for the people who are more true to understanding it, so that they can match the words. But I'm gonna read the concepts for you. O you eight chaos gods who are in charge of the chambers of the sky, who shew made from the flux of his members, who put together the ladder of shew, come and meet your father in me. Come and meet your father in me. Right? So they will ride forces. Give me your arms. Pull together the ladder for me. A ladder moving up and down, right? For I am he who created you and made you, right? Because I have the Father inside me, even as I was created by your father Atum. I am weary of the support of the shoe, since I lifted up my daughter Neat from within myself, a derived field formula, so that I might give her to my father Atum in his realm, and I have set Geb upon my feet. Geb is a derived member of the Ennead, right? This God knits up the two lands of my father Atum. He gathers together for himself the celestial kind. I have set myself among them, but the 9 gods cannot see me. I indeed am Shu, who Atum created, whereby Ray came into being. I was not built up. Let me see if I can move this up. Yeah, I was not built up in the womb. I was not knit together in the egg. I was not conceived. Lo, but Atum spat me out of the spittle of the mouth together. We are talking about cosmic quantum forces, and we're talking about our ancestors, right, of Africa could understand these concepts, these deep concepts of forces within forces, rippling, connecting with each other, creating one way and not another way, right? I wasn't born in the womb. I wasn't created like you were created, right? I was created differently. Forces derive into forces. Things change. Forces are dependent on others. There's electrons. There's protons. There's neutrons, right? There's quarks. All created a different way, but they're hidden. We don't know until we further investigate. But here's the African posing the same thing modern physics is posing. Quantum physics is posing. Are you still interested, or you went to sleep, Clemson?
No. You see, I'm with you 100%.
Oh, okay. Because I'm just looking at my screen, so I'm not looking at the screen. So then, from the 8, we get the derived 9. So the derived 9 is a tomb now being created, the derived force. And then we see Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nud, Osir, Set, Seth, Nebhed, and others, Horus the Elder. And so we know now that these 9 was derived from the 8. I'm going to tell you something, and I'll say it several times in this presentation.
Okay.
Counting in ancient Egypt is part of the cosmology. So the Kemenu is 8. The Pasad Neteru, the Pasadu Neteru is a 9, right? If you encounter anybody who wants to talk about any of this stuff, who says they're into Kemet, maybe they might be a Kemet student. You could call them a Kemet student, right? If they can't count to 10. Because if you can't count to 10 in the meta nature, you miss all of the concepts. You got to be able to count to 10. Just like, huh?
Okay.
Just like, so if they can't say, oh, what's 1? Why? Right? What's 2? Sinu. What's 3? Kimu. Right? If they can't begin to do that, then run away from them. Run as fast as you can from them. What they are is a junior teacher, a junior priest. Because if you don't know how to count to 10, you can't see it in the meta nature. Run from them as fast as you can. Now, my teachers now, here's the thing. My teacher is Dr. Ben, Dr. Richetti, Dr. Carruthers. Dr. Carruthers was the most open, right? And Dr. Richetti are both the most open. But you have to ask them a good question, and you have to do the work, right? They are, I mean, if you ever heard Dr. Richetti explain something, and you put up this extraordinary piece when Dr. Richetti was first explaining Kemet to us. Kemet had not been explained to us until Dr. Richetti explained, and you caught her in a moment of you remember that, Clemson?
Well, I have several tapes with her, so
right.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
All of them, because that was in the moment of giving birth to the concept of Kemet. She didn't do one presentation. She did several presentations nationally, right? In New York, different groups of people. You was in the moments of the birth of the word.
Okay.
So you have several of them. That's like different accounts, right? That's like different accounts, looking at it from different sides. She may have said one thing different than another. She might have added more information or less information.
Yes.
You taught her from a vantage point of looking at the creation in the black mind of the words Kemet and Hotep, right? And Ma'at. Because we didn't have those concepts before her, right?
Yes, I agree.
Dr. Ben, now Dr. Ben is different. Dr. Ben is a man of secrets and mysteries, right? You have to know how to knock before Dr. Ben reveals anything of a mystery, right? Because why? Because he understood that it could be taken for granted. It could be misused, right?
Right.
Charlatans, right? And Dr. Ben's process was a little bit different. You would have to go through a process. Richetti and Dr. Carruthers, in creating ASCAC with others, Malana Karenga, Asa Hillian, and Dr. Jeffries and the rest, they were more gentle with the people and more honest, hoping that the people could be in Ma'at, right?
Yes.
But not Dr. Ben. You ask Dr. Ben, for example, man, know thyself. Where is it in Egypt? He would look at you and he would say this, it's there in every temple. Yeah, I know it's in every temple, but where is it? He said, you may be looking at it, or you may have to go and find it. Right? What do you mean, Dr. Ben? I want to know, where does it say, man, know thyself? And he wouldn't give it to you. So I went to one of his students in the mysteries. And I said, look, Brother William X, you know Brother William X, right?
Yes.
He's an ancestor now. But he was a teacher of mine, right? Because I didn't join the mysteries because I was too young and I was still a student, but I was being groomed to join Dr. Ben's system of mysteries. But then my teachers, Dr. Jeffries and Brother Smalls, and they said, wait. If you go into this, you may not be able to you may not be able to speak for another generation. You might need permission, right? So why don't we do this? Why don't we give you the information so that you can explore it, find it yourself, right? And you can always ask questions we may not be able to tell you. We may not be able to tell you. But we might be able to point you in a direction. So we may not confirm or deny, unless we really have to deny. But what we do, but Brother X was a little bit more gentle. So I said, Brother X, where is man know thyself? Where is it? Dr. Ben says it's on every temple. And then Brother X says, it is. I said, well, where is it? And he said, come and have dinner with me and we'll talk a little bit more and see what you know. So what I did, Clemson, was I got you to the point of getting ready to tell you and this audience, where is the symbol that says, man, know thyself, right?
I'm waiting.
I'm not going to give it. I'm moving on.
You did that on purpose.
That's correct. You know why? Because if I say it, I'm saying more than I should say. But if I say it, then you got somebody who's throwing on some robe and have some accoutrements and who sound good, and then they're gonna tell everybody on their next trip or the trip that they're planning, right? Their first trip to Egypt. I know where it says, man, know thyself, but know nothing of this stuff in between it. Maybe during this presentation, I will tell you, because I'm not bound by oath, right? But I am bound by respect, right? I do these presentations. Sometimes I only get $40. But I notice 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 3,000 people, 10,000 people will watch my information and won't even give me $5 or $10. It's not about the money, it's about the respect. It's about the respect for the information. Because once I give it, you got it. You own it. But you didn't earn it. You didn't earn it. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You didn't acquire. You didn't learn how to read the meta-nature. You can't read none of this.
Correct.
The fact of the matter is you could if you came and you decided you could take Dr. Ricchetti's class. You could take Dr. Ricchetti's class and learn it. You won't. Right? You can take Ifadisi's class. You won't. You can take Dr. Cambone's class. You won't. You want it easy. You want my slide. You want my slide. You don't know that I had to go to the coffin text, cut every one of these texts out to line it up with the words that the Europeans say and to check it to see if it said what it says. But you want my slide. You want it easy. Mm-hmm. And we as Black people, we complain. And then we just think that, well, if the knowledge is out there, we should get it. That's why the Europeans don't give you nothing, right? You're not smart enough that it's in your plain sight. You got to take it. But with your own people, you criticize, you marginalize, you tell people in their face they're not spiritual, but you're spiritual and you can't read, you can't count to 1 to 10 in the meta-nature. Mm-hmm. But you're spiritual and I'm not. Should I go on?
Oh, yeah, please.
When you go to Kemet, you don't see these words on the bottom. You don't even see it like this. This is in nice penmanship. But this is what you see on the walls. And then many of our people who go to Kemet, they stand right in front of some of the most profound texts. And they say, yeah, this is Pepi's temple. And he was a 6th dynasty king. And people wondering, well, what's the stuff behind him? Oh, that's the ancient Egyptian secret mystery system text. And yeah, but what does it say? I can't reveal it to you. I can't reveal it to you. Well, do you know it? Can you read any of it? Well, yeah, I can, but you got to take my course. So, what does this say? It says, "Ha, neteru, pasadu neteru." How do I know that? Well, here's the neterus in plural, and there's 9 of them. Oh, so that means you got to count. So pasadu is 9. So I see 9 flags. So that's pasadu, neteru. And then it says at, right? And then it talks about the place called on. So you have this thing called on, which is, this is grammar right here. And then you say, this part is the anu. And then you have medu necha, that, how can I say, that complements what it's saying, but this is anu. And this is the city. And then, what does this stuff over here say? Oh, you see some ducks, and you see some vipers, and you see some eyes. And what is it? What does it say? Oh, you see this strange thing. Oh, don't say nothing. Yeah, it does. This is a tomb. This is shu, right? This is the medu necha. This is the medu necha for the S sound. Shu. Here's a determinative, feather. This is the U chick. Shu, right? This is T, F, N, T. This is Tefnut. This is Geb or Seb, depending on how you want to pronounce it. This is the Nubo, and this is T. This is Nut. This is a Sur, a Seer. This is a Set. This is Osiris and Isis, right? This is Set, the candy cane. S, T, Set. This is the sister, Nebhet, right? Nebet is really Nebet with a T inside the temple, Nebet Hot, but they say Nebet Het. And then it says, oh, shoot. Then the bottom says, when whom Atum is giving birth to himself, right? And then you look at the Meta Necha, and you see Miss to be born, Atum, right? And then then over here you say, well, hold up. This don't, what's this? This is a ib. This is a heart, right?
Yeah.
So now we're in the next line, but if you read the European, you don't know. So he's but it says brought it into the world, a projection of his heart. So we see Miss again. So he's born in the world. We see the heart, right? Projection of his heart. And then we see the name Ren. Ren, this is R, and in Ren, his name, right? And then we count 9 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, this the Pesedu. So this is the 9 bows, right? And then you go on, and then it has this phrase: "None of you are separated from Atem." Now, so you have meta-netra skills where you could directly translate. You have meta-netra skills where you could verify in a flash, right? But then you have people who stand in the pyramid text and say, oh, I'm in the pyramid text. See Joe, see Johnny, see Sally, or Tamika, or Shania. I'm in the pyramid text. No, Tamika and Shania want to know what the words say. Stop standing in front of the temples of your great ancestors without learning what it says. You're disrespectful. So Dr. Ben would not, you was there at this great argument that we had, Brother Clemson Brown, Dr. Ben and Dr. Malana Karanga, about going into the holies of holies.
Yeah, I was there.
Describe to the people about that concept. Do you remember any of it?
I remember that it was at the ASCAC conference in when we were in Nubia, wasn't it? at the opening, right after the opening.
Well, I
But
think it started around the Karnak. I think it started around the Karnak temple or Luxor, right?
yeah,
And Dr. Maulana Karenga was teaching, and he wanted to bring some people into one of the holies of holies in one of the temples, right?
yeah.
And Dr. Ben jumped up and over my dead body, not on my trip. I brought you here. You can't go into the holies of holies. You're not tourists.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that? Huh?
Yeah.
And Dr. Malana Karanga, a little younger than Dr. Ben, right? A little bit more brash, right? Was like, well, this is ours. We're coming to reclaim it. And Dr. Ben says, yeah, you are, but through me. I'm the one who brought you here. You knew nothing of this. And I'm in the order of the mystery systems, then you are not, and people are watching. So you have to have some respect. And Dr. Malana Karanga argued a little while, but Dr. Malana Karenga was respectful to Dr. Ben. And we know it's a great argument. But what was Dr. Ben saying? Dr. Ben was saying, why should people be ushered into the holies of holies where these people conceptualize these thoughts without any training and any learning? And Dr. Malana Karenga's position was, well, we're here, we took this pilgrimage, our people can learn, let them in there, and maybe they may go back. And Dr. Ben was like, well, I'm in an order. You can't do it. You can do it when I'm not around, but when I'm around, you can't do it in my face. Mm-hmm. So you have the elder talking about respect for information, and you have Dr. Malana Karenga respecting Dr. Ben. I love Dr. Malana Karenga. I love him because he got older. The things that he did in the past, everybody's done things in the past, and he's accused of doing some horrible things. But I've seen him respect Dr. Yosef Ben Jochanan, whether Dr. Yosef Ben Jochanan was right or wrong, right? And now Dr. Ben is an ancestor, and Dr. Malana Karenga is still teaching. He has 2 PhDs. I love him because I saw it with my own eyes. 2 strong intellectuals respecting each other over the information of our people. So I didn't just throw this text up for no reason, right? I threw this text up because it's part of my lesson on quantum physics.
Okay.
So remember I said forces derive from forces?
Yeah.
And that the Kemenu gave birth to the Passad Neteru, which is the 9.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the concept of these concepts of forces being created out of other forces. So Atum giving birth to his heart, to himself, right?
Yes.
And then there's this concept, it throws in the concept of human life, because the forces that we live on is within our heart. Our heart gives us our frequency, gives us a pulse, it gives us time. Our time is based on our heart. If your brain dies, you can still be alive. If your heart dies, you're done. Your heart is your frequency, it's your force. And so they're mixing in these big concepts, but we just think it's a duck, a couple of seats up there, some flags, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't understand, and this is in the pyramid text, and we don't understand. And then it said on the bottom, it says, none of you is separate from a tomb, right? Meaning that there's this connection. Now, the people that I argue with say it's spirituality. I don't see the word spirituality in none of this. I see people putting word spirituality, right? But I don't see where the text says it. I don't see where the text says it. I see you using your Judeo-Christian Islamic ideas on ancient Egyptian texts, but all of it basically says, it says none of you, right, is separate from a tomb. That's what it says. right? It don't say what you say. Why don't you spend some time, people, saying what the ancestors said instead of making stuff up? Can I go on?
Yeah, of course. Please.
So then in texts like this, we do, see Johnny or John or Big John or Big Mike. Look, what's going on here? Oh, I think that's Nut. Oh, okay, this is Nut. Oh, that's Geb. Somebody slick, with a dashiki on and saying this is Geb. Right? Who's all these other people? So there's all the other people. I don't know, but I know one thing. This is Geb and this is Nut. And let's just keep it moving. Yeah, okay. What else do we see? Oh, shoot. Here's Shu. Oh, shoot. This is Tefnut. Right? This is Mr. Tefnut. Wow. We see, okay, over here we see the king wearing a crown, and he's got this Medu Neter, which is basically says everlasting or long. And then we have the solar boat of Ra talking to Ma'at, talking to another deity that I didn't read this text with. I can't say if this is Kanun. This looks like another deity in the afterlife, but it could be Shu. This could be, I have to check, but I do know that Ra is talking to Ma'at, right? And I could verify that without reading the text, because we would have to read the text. But the fact of the matter is, what do we see here? We see quantum forces. We see not only Geb holding up Nut, that people always like to talk about, that Geb holds up Nut. No, Geb is holding up Nut because there's other elementary forces there. There's Shu and Tefnut. And Shu and Tefnut gave birth to their children, Geb and Nut. And so we see multiple elementary forces that the ancient Egyptian posed, right? And so we see their names around here. We see Geb over here, right? We see Shu over here. So we're there not because I could say, see Sally, see Jane, see John, or Big Mac, or Tamika. This is what I think it is. No, the ancient Egyptians wrote what it was. People don't understand the writing of ancient Egypt, which I talk about, is more important than building the pyramids. Because we don't have to guess. So when you go into the pyramid text, man, you see stuff like this on the walls. This is pretty much what it looks like over here. And then we try to work this out. We try to work it out. We try to put it in a language that's close to us so that we could see. And then even when it's translated, we have to now make sure it says what it says. So let's just make sure what it says. And all this has to do with quantum physics and quantum thought. One is because it's in the context of creation, of multiple waves and particles and forces. So we see Tem here, and we see Kepra, so that's right. And then we see M, which is a uniliteral, but it also has a function. And then we see this word Iwu Sawu. So we see the kind of the backbone, and we see the penis, and we see this word Iwu. So this is talking about some type of begetting strength. It's phallic. It's phallic. It's the phallic, yeah, and it's the word the long, right? And it's moving. This is more like in the sense of potency. And then we see Irief make him in Inu, which is, they call it Heliopolis. And then it says, Wadin MF. I don't speak Medu Neter. I just use the transliterations to help me. NF, Oud, and place. Oud is placed in he, right? Placed he, placed to he, of he, in he. And then it says the phallus, which is in this case Hindu. There's different words for it, but we know the H and the NN. And then his phallus. And then it says M, in, and then this word over here, kefet, place, kefet, meaning it doesn't really mean palm, except for when you actually see the palm. So kefet is kind of like a place. What place? His palm. His palm. Irieth made him, and then bik is this word over here, which is sweet. Nidim met. So sweet ejaculation. By it, by his. Miss is born. And then this is interesting. Seti, the twin, two. So we're talking about, in this case, we're talking about Shu and Tefnut, right? Or we're talking about the twins. And then it says Senti, siblings, brother and sister. Shu, okay, so this was Shu and Tefnut, sorry. Shu and Tefnut are the twins. And we have more information over here when we see Shu, this one, together with Tefnut. Hinnas together with. So what we do is we have to verify the meta-netter, at least to say what it says. But in this context, it's still having to do with quantum physics and that forces are becoming forces in places. It's not direct, but it's conceptual. So
Right.
here we have TFNT, Tefnut, TFNT, Tefnut, and then we have dual, two. So then we know from this other passage that is the twins, right?
Yeah.
But Tefnut, right? And then it says excavate. This word over here, Zayd, the pond. We know pond is Merle, pool of water. For Teti is not listed in here. Who's in the cartouche, but in this case it's Teti. Pin is this one in the fields of reeds. Interesting. So the text says Tefnut having in herself her brother Shu. They're excavating a pond for King Teti in the fields of reeds. Interesting, in these concepts of ancient Egyptians, you find this word that we use, or not we use, because I'm not a quantum physicist or anything like Dr. Yibo, but we find that they use these words, fields, to begin to articulate thoughts in the afterlife in places like that, the field of reeds. But then we find that fields is a concept in physics. Interesting. And let's go on. Okay. So where I first learned this is, of course, Dr. Jacob Carruthers. Dr. Jacob Carruthers, he wrote this book, Essays in Egyptian Studies, and I keep sorry, it's backwards. But it's a hard to get book. But he was the first person to post to me the Kimenu. And I became fascinated, but not overly fascinated. I became fascinated that these are elementary forces. And then I continued to do research, right? I continued to do research. And so these are some of the findings of my research. Nothing is really important about this except that this Hathor, a set figure, but Hathor is giving life to the king with the Ankh, right? But this is in the human world. So I want to talk a little bit about the Ankh and then some other concepts, and then we'll maybe you ask me some questions. We'll call it a day. But I have much more, so don't think I'm not. But I'm at another part of it. So, okay. The Kemetiu, spelled different ways. don't worry about how to spell it, but understand it. It means the black community and the habits of the black people. Their creation formula is the symbol Ankh. And we know part of what it sounds like, which is this water wave in, and we know this sound is KH. So this is in KH. How they make it Ankh? Hey, Brother Minister, I have never seen the Ankh with an A. It is always in KH. But since we're European trained, and since we have so much damage, some of our great scholars don't really come to them and be corrective. They're like, you know what? If you want to say it's Ankh, we know what you mean is Ankh. I'll let you say Ankh. But if you come into my classroom, I'll tell you it's knock. It's most likely knock. But if you want to continue to say Ankh, and fine, we're not going to really correct you in public. But if you come into any of their classes, it's Ankh. And so I have intellectual arguments with the spiritual people, and they want to tell me that the Ankh is not connected to the Kemenu, that my secret of the Ankh is wrong, and that Ankh A-N-K-H don't mean it's just a coincidence. It's a coincidence, Brother Reggie, that you have the same 4 sounds of the Ankh inside the Kemenu, inside the symbol of the Ankh, and they want to beat me up with this, but I laugh at them because I'm like, you can't read Meta Nature, so you don't know what you're talking about. So you want to argue with me in English, fine, no problem. I'm making a more of a teaching moment. So the fact of the matter is, if you look at it closely and you think of it conceptually, you actually see a wave and you see a particle. Life is nothing but waves and particles. If this symbol is life, it's really nothing but waves and particles. We are nothing but waves and particles. That's all we are. Matter of fact, our eyes move too damn slow. Our senses move too slow, so we take snapshots of what's going on. So when your eyes is computing to your brain, it's computing millions of snapshots, but these are instant moments, right? This is an objective reality at a particular second that becomes to you what you think is reality. But reality really is that we are all waves. We have heat coming from us. We have colors coming from us. We have all type of things, but the eye can't see it, right? And the eye can't see what's happening in the universe. It can't see all the colors. It can't see anything. So what it does is it gives snapshots of what we think is reality. So in quantum physics, they have all these experiments where they are trying to observe photons and protons, and then how can I see? 1 minute it looks one way, and then another minute when they turn on the sensors, it looks this way. That is because all of this is happening at the same time, and our instruments, where we create our instruments, can't observe the stream. Well, all we can observe is a snapshot. So a snapshot would be just a snapshot, and that's an elemental idea in some of the physics experiments that we say, oh, we're observing it. And then it changes. It really looks like one way. So they have these the split screen experiment, and they have some other experiments. The fact of the matter is that our senses can only observe snapshots. So what we really are waves and particles. So let me just read some text. I may add some meta-nature to it. I may not. Why should I? Right? Go and find the meta-nature or not. I'm going to give you the text to make my point on quantum physics. You, the 8, have made from your seed a germ. Ben, like Ben. And you have instilled this seed in the lotus by pouring the seminal fluid. You have deposited in the noon condensed into a single form, and your inheritor takes his radiant birth under the aspect of a child. Okay, I can just say that this is all quantum waves and fields, right?
Yeah.
And these are forces that derive from other forces, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am not saying any of this is true, Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Their mythology. But I'm saying, look at the deep thought that you can find in the language of your ancestors.
Right.
If you could contemplate this, then your mind expands and you could become who you want to become. Instead
Correct.
of selling drugs, getting money, pouring bottles out, clubbing, right? Or being a Negro in a cubicle, right? Our ancestors, earlier than our West African ancestors, gave you these concepts to expand your mind so that you not only see the instant, you see the whole waveform.
Okay. All right.
Oh, okay. More text. You tell me when you're tired, Clemson.
No, go ahead. I'm with you.
Zen says the great Kiminu of the initial moments as they respect the goddess between them, the one most secret of visible forms in its manifestation of Ray, transforming into Ray, having been made as the God who came about by himself, whose bones are silver, whose skin is gold, whose hair is true lapis lula, whose teeth are likewise of turquoise. Okay, so said Jed Hair says the Kiminu, where great in the initial moments, tepi, time, right? As they respect Tura, the Necher, wet, Imi, between them, right? And so, and then the secret, Sesta, the secrets, right? I guess of the visible. And then I see the manifestation of Ray. Stop playing with your ancestors. Stop playing with your people. Stop fooling your people. If you can't read, if you can't verify, here's a European who did a great job, who did an incredible job. Thank you, David Klotz, right? Revealing us the great Amen hymn. But to our people, stop playing around. This is your, this is not, everybody knows that, Brother Reggie can't speak well. I'm not a singer or a dancer. I'm not an entertainer. I stutter and I look funny, right? I'm light skinned. I look like a mulatto. All those names you call me, right? But I'm gifted in that I deeply respect what my ancestors said, and I don't hide behind spirituality. I hide behind the intellect and knowing, right, from great teachers, so that I can give it to our people and express concepts of quantum physics to you, while you support other people who dress well and stuff. But the difference is, I was trained by the great elders. Some of the people that you support, they weren't trained, they weren't there. So yeah. So let me see over here. The great God. Okay. So Netter Nefer, the good God, right? Okay. So we have the text, so we should be able to verify it. People like Infodici and his students can verify it. We'll get into that, right?
Yeah.
It is the radiance of the sun disk who shines every day that has distanced himself. His Ba belongs to the sky where he rises from the Akkad, right? And then, okay, let me just read this. He appears upon the earth as the lake of the two knives who sails in the heaven, right? In the morning and evening as a living child of the hay gods who rest upon Ma'at. So the the point who brightens the day and dispels who brightens the day and dispels the darkness. So this text right here is this text over here, and you can see the Hey Gods, and you can see the offering, and you can see Ma'at, and you can see the darkness, and you can see the light here, and so I have an idea of verifying what this says, but more profoundly is this is a quantum physics moment. He who appears upon earth at the lake, a place of the two knives, whatever the two knives does, who sails the heavens in the morning and evening as a living child of the Hey Gods who rest upon Ma'at. So now we got Ma'at here in the order of the universe. We got the Hey Gods, and we got brightens the day and dispels darkness. We have the concept of these elementary forces, because we're talking about, again, the Hey Gods, right? And brightening the day, creating light, and dispelling the darkness. The ancient Egyptians created beautiful formulas, which I said in the very beginning. Beautiful formulas that they apply over and over and over again. Formulas that they knew of, like pi, right? They knew the boiling points, right? Of materials. They saw beautiful. They knew what masturbation is in the concept of ejaculation. They know time. They know the moment. They know that the sun rises every morning from Atet, the east, right, over the horizon, the Aket, and gives us time. They know that Ra, the sun, is the concept of time itself. Forget the sun of it, the heat. That's not the point. The point of it is that every time the sun rises, it's time.
Okay.
The deep thoughts of ancient Egypt is creates all of these concepts that we use. So you are Amun, you are Atum, you are Kepri, you are Ray, so one who made himself into millions, Tatana, who came about in the beginning. You are the one who built his body with his own hands and every form of his desire. You're the great wings scarab with nut. And then it goes on that Agdad, the Kimenu, rises for him in jubilation when he appears. They see him by means of his first manifestation as Horus, who illuminates, who encircles the entire circuit in the spitfire and torch of his eyes. So you can read the whole concept on the in David Klotz's Adoration of the Ram, and you can see. I could have put the meta necha there, but I'm not. I'm just putting the transliterations. Tawat, Emin, Tawat, Etim, Tawat, Kepri, Tawat, Ray. So in this concept, they took these other forces. They took four major forces of fields, Emin, Etim, Kepri, and Ray. And he says, Wa, so one, right? Ear made himself into millions. Heu. Remember, I told you, if you in Meta Necha, you can't count from 10, stop teaching. Go learn from a teacher. Stop messing with the people. You hear Why is one, soul one who made himself into millions. Right? And so we know exactly what this concept is saying, but the fact of the matter is our ancestors are saying, it's saying that these forces, fields, right, together is the sole one who made himself into millions. Whether it's true or not, whether it's just the imagination, it is way more profound than something I'm going to get to in a few minutes. The Himenu, then it says, who swam to their hometown, the island of flames, who created light within the primeval mound, Oit, who made their throne in Hermopolis, Winnow before their father Shepsi. So I know you want to read this, but you get nowhere. You get nowhere with your people reading this, because then you have to give it all back to the European. Thank you, Master. But when you go to Kemet and you go to Hibis, the temple of Hibis, you may say this on the wall, or this is the transliteration, Kimino, who swam to their hometown, right, in the island of the flame, right, within the mound, and they give us a hint, the mound, who made their throne, right, who made their throne with their father Shepset, right, before their father Shepsi. So we can at least verify what's going on. Again, Lord of the Hay gods, who support the gods, most primeval of the gods, elders of the primeval ones, builder of the builders, the Renetet of Renetets, Kanun, who made the creator god. Now Kanun is involved, who made the creator god, effective counsel, open and sharp of face, Lord of that exists, who predetermined every event, bull of his mother, begetter of his father, destroys a pep when he manifests manifestation, just as he wept mankind from his divine eyes. So he spit out the gods of his mouth. Why did I put this here? Because now the forces, the cosmic forces, are in the business now of creating humans, the force in humans. And they're still connecting it to the Hay gods, the Kimino gods, right? Neb, Heu, right? These are the Hay gods, right? The Neter, that supports the gods, Pwati, or Enter, or Enter, right? Which is the eldest of the gods. And then over some you see Renet is a goddess, right? Of seasons, right? Of seasons, of changes. And then you see Kimino again, Kimino, Kimino. So we have Renet, and then we have this Kimino is Kanun, right? Kanun, who now makes the Kinanu, who makes the creator gods, right? So now Kanun himself, so they're mixing in different, remember, forces derive, other forces, fields derives fields. In this case, all of this stuff is coming in to create mankind, right? Just as he wept mankind from his divine eyes, so he spat out the gods from his mouth. So basically, if you don't know, in one of the stories, humans are created by the tears of Ray or of another netter, right? And but the forces that created the forces that created Ray himself was out of the was either spat or masturbated, meaning forces in Noon. It's still connected to water. It's connected to what this stuff is in Noon, whatever this is. As a living child of the Hay gods who rests upon Ma'at, who brightens the day and dispels darkness, we talked about that, all right. As a living god of the Hay gods, whose offering rests on Ma'at, who dispels, who brightens the day and dispels darkness, his darkness, right? And so the point of it is, over and over again, they are using these beautiful formulas to understand the cosmics. Here, you have your offering bread, O Nu and Nunet, you two protectors. That's the primordial waters of the gods, who protects the gods with your shadow. You have your offering bread, O Amun or Amanet, you two protectors of the gods, who protect the gods with your shadow. You have the offering bread, O Atum and Ruti, who yourselves created the Godhead in your person. O Shu and Tefnut, who made the gods. So in this particular case, they are combining different creative forces to create other things. Pyramid text 301. Your offering cake belongs to you, Noon and Nunet, who protects the gods, who guards the gods from your shadows. So this is pretty much a repeat in a different text. So pyramid text 446, pyramid text 301. Let's go here. Oh, Amun Ray. This is another derived force of Medinet Habel, Nun the elder who came about in the beginning, bull who ejaculates Nun. So in this case, this is another cosmology where there are bulls in heaven, and the bull and Nun is ejaculated from the cosmic forces in the context of bulls, meaning great forces, right? Nun, primordial forces. So we have none of this is real. None of this is real. Don't pray to this. Try to understand it to try to understand it, the visions and the thoughts of your ancestors who are way smarter than us. Okay. So I have lots of text in the context of quantum physics and fields and ideas that gave birth to it, right? From different texts, from my research of going through the text and finding things that relate to cosmic concepts, forces that are quantum in its conception, not necessarily quantum in actual science, because we can't say that any of this is real. But what we can say is our ancestors created the thought in the human minds to create the concept of science. So let's go on without me reading it. Now, Ba's or secret names. So Amun has several secret names. So properties, capabilities. So when we say the Ba of Amun, the fourth Ba, right? The Wa Ba, right? The Sanu Ba. What we're saying is that there are different properties. Again, these properties are not necessarily real unless you are a believer in this. But if you're a believer in this, you better know how to read Medu Neter. Tell me you're a believer and you believe in this and you can't read the Medu Neter, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not playing with you. I'm not playing with you people, right? Don't tell me you're a believer and you can't read any of this.
Okay.
But the fact is, so these are deep cosmic quantum ideas. And I'm only focusing on the quantum ideas because that's what you asked me. You asked me, Brother Reggie, talk about the Kimenu, the Octad in the Inayat, right? And I'm not talking about Nice. I mentioned Nice cosmology. I'm not talking about Ptah Nun, and Ptah Nunet, even though Ptah, by saying Ptah Nun and Ptah Nunet, which you can get from Theophilo Banger's book on Shabaka Stone, you see that Ptah is connected to Nun and Nunet. So you see the Kimenu is a beautiful formula that finds itself, small things influence bigger things, right? So you see this combination of this idea of smaller things or elementary forces connecting with other forces, right? In other, I'm just looking for something that I might want to read besides.
While you're doing that, Reggie, let me ask you a question. In terms of these forces, smaller forces impacting, influencing larger forces, and those forces are bringing into being all of creation. Would I be correct in saying that?
There are creations. So there's not, we like to think of in the biblical thing, the creation of the universe and the Big Bang Theory, but things are being created all the time. So these.
No, I'm not talking about the concept of the Big Bang Theory. I told you before, Professor Ebo dealt with that in his peer review, that the concept of the Big Bang Theory was wrong because the universe is from infinity to infinity. It's space. It's all of space. Therefore, when, after the mathematics was done and all that, um, he asks, where was the universe expanding to? And it was quiet for a moment, and then somebody stood up, another mathematician, mathematical physicist, and said, Prof, in other words, Professor, that too is the universe. And for a moment, it was quiet, and then everybody just started clapping and standing because Professor Ebo had won the day. There is nothing beyond space. The universe is all space, from infinity to infinity, billions and billions and billions of stars and planets and all of that. But all of that is space.
Okay.
So
Well, some of that, yes.
what I'm asking you in terms of quantum physics is there anything in the universe other than the forces that we know? And is humanity composed of forces that are beyond air, water, earth, and the sun? I mean, those are the forces that make up
Well, I
our.
tried to explain in my talk that little things influence big things. So the elementary forces of the Kiminu, as far as the ancient Egyptians was concerned, are parts of the creation of the other forces. And ultimately, I got to in the text where we were being created by the tears of a derived force. So the fact of the matter is, yes, we are composed of the same things of all the forces in a derived way, right? According to the ancient Egyptians, and very similar to quantum physics. Quantum physics, we have a heart, right? Well, in physics, in medicine, because you have the elements of physics, you have chemistry, you have biology, right? So biology is derived from chemistry, and chemistry is derived from physics, and then mathematics helps us to understand all things in between, right? That's where we can prove or disprove or write formulas that show things that repeat. So the fact of the matter is, yes, we are a derived, given this particular environment that we live on the planet of Earth. Yes, we are derived. We are a force. We are actually ourselves a netter, a low netter, a netter with less capabilities, but in one sense, we are a conscious netter. We can actually think. So the issue about space, uh, 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 space. The question is what is space now composed of? So those are the things that quantum physicists and quantum people try to understand quantum mechanics is what is space or kek and kek, right? The darkness. What is it composed of? Well, it's obviously composed of uh, um, uh, uh, other elementary forces. So we have noon, and then we have properties like infinity, hey and hey hey. And then we have what we're always trying to discover, which is the Amun. The ancient Egyptians, the Kemetiu, they posed this. So to me, saying space is the same thing like saying spirit. I'm not trying to listen to that. Tell me what's in the space. Describe the Egyptians, the Kemetiu, whether they were right or wrong. They tried to describe what is in it, what is composed.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. What is in it? What is it composed of?
The waves and and fields. So Nunet is always waves and fields. So waves and fields are the elementary concepts of what someone might say is space.
Okay.
They are all there. There are forces. There are forces concerning the gravity of the universe, concerning the pulls, the other forces, all these forces, whether we see it or not in Amun or Amunet, these forces are there whether we see it. So we may be focusing around a black hole. There may be a black hole that's contributing to the force. We don't. Those are the unknown that we look to build tools to measure. We look where humans look to build tools to measure what is there to sense it. We're learning new. Well, not we, the people who are doing it are learning new things every day, seeing new particles, trying to understand things like I had said earlier before with a superconductor and a magnet. When a magnet is over a superconductor, then the photons turn into mass, and it keeps up the magnet in between the space in this context of the superconductor and the magnet. The photons or the material in between it has now changed into mass. So now this mass is now creating a certain type of gravity that's holding up the magnets. So these forces are part of the whole universe.
Okay. All right. Now, let me ask you this question. Really, I'm trying to get a deeper understanding of things by a dialogue with you. And I respect the research that you have done. I'm glad you can read Meta Nature. I can't. But I can, as a people, we need to come together and bring as much understanding at this particular time in our being as we can. And we can't be afraid to exchange the ideas and listen to one another, which is why I give you tremendous respect. I listen at you, even humble, because I don't really know it all. I'm forever learning.
Nobody does. But I am on your platform, and I am answering your questions, and I am teaching, and I am giving you some of the answers that my teachers gave me. So I am educating. I just don't have to like the way other people are educating, but I am educating, right? Because I
agree. We should have this dialogue, but I'm trying to get an understanding now within the atom, the neutron, the proton, the electron, which is the basic building block of all matter. Is that correct?
No, because underneath them, the last conversation we talked about the standard. We talked about the standard model, and we talked about the particles that create subatomic particles, quantum particles that create matter, and then there's the forces in between them, and we talked about the strong force, the weak force. We talked about the Higgs boson. So there are forces, and how these things interact is a thing. So atoms are unique in the sense that they are created, but every electron functions the same way. They are electrons. Every proton is a proton. Every neutron is a neutron. It is just how those electrons and photons organized by forces, the forces that they derive from. So then you have elements, right, with different electron structures, right, depending on how it was formed. So,
well, let me ask you this question. I'm not cutting you off. Before I forget about it, there, as I understand it, there is but one element, and that element is the substance of all waves derived from the one element. How many?
say that again. All waves or the derived? No.
There's only one element. I mean, if
the element in the periodic table of elements.
there's only one element, and that's the hydrogen atom.
Okay.
The rest is how
I mean, I've heard that, and
how atoms are placed. I mean, if you've been following Professor Ebo's work, these are the things that he really dealt with in his book, The Unified Field Theory. And it's a matter of how atoms are placed. And, you know, you can use it.
matter of how electrons are placed. The combination of electrons.
An atom has a proton, a neutron, and an electron. All that, and you say they can.
I know, but that all. Watch this. Let me say this again, because maybe you don't understand. All electrons or electrons, all protons or protons, all neutrons or neutrons. Right now, there are forces that force them to combine, and then there's things around the electron, things like superposition, that where electrons find themselves in particular places and patterns. And maybe it's the forces of when these things were created that caused it. It could have been heat, it could have been explosion, it could have been there are a number of forces. So hydrogen is the basic construction of a proton, neutron, and electron, right? It's the basic construction. And so then, yes, it seems to be a building block. And then there's other there's forces that cause and happenings and events that allow two protons to an atom to combine with another atom, and then you get
and you're talking about the weak and strong forces, which the strong force actually holds things that should be pushing apart together. I mean, you can go into all of these things, but basically, in this environment on Earth, we are all constituents of water, earth, sun, water, sun, earth. What's the fourth element?
Fire, water, earth,
water, acid. So we're all constituents of that, and all of those constituents go in everything that is generated in this environment, and there's a symbiotic relationship between all things in this environment. You can't exist, you can't live without water. You can't even live without the plants. The plants, as I said before, you're breathing out, they're breathing in. There's a symbiotic relationship. The sun up in the sky is what draws life into your body and into everything else. And it's
not disagreeing, and I tried to show that in my presentation, is that there's something called the netters and the netter rule, right? So there are defined properties, and there are netters, and that yes, they exist and they repel, they interact, and there are things that's derived from them, right? So there is a number of netters or properties, whether they're fields, they're forces, they're waves, and then they interact. The ancient Egyptians, like the modern physicists, found that there are beautiful formulas. There are things that we can anticipate. Those are things that we could study. That helps us find what those interactions are in an isolate environment, in a particular study. We might be able to see and understand something. But again, smaller things deriving and create bigger things. and I go back to all the things that I said before, like a court case, that you can create beautiful formulas from what we learn, and then our lives are really insequential to this. We're just happy to be alive and be able to try to uh, understand these type of things. But my whole point of this lecture, and I can finish up in a few minutes, is the fact that our ancestors, our people 4,000, 5,000 years ago, created a learning environment, a thinking that created that helps to answer these big questions. And they gave these other people, the Syrians, the golden age, the Greeks, the golden age, the Persians, the golden age, the French, the golden age, the British, the golden age, the Americas, the golden age, and all of that derived from African people. So it's up to African people now, not to Diddy Bop, and but it's to reclaim and restore their culture by not being lazy. Diop wasn't lazy. Banga's not lazy. Carruthers and Riccati are not lazy, right? They're not walking around and continuously using terms like space and spirit to prove their point. Or Dr. Yibo. He's not. These people are trying to find what is in between space. What is space depending on? And looking at our people's ancestral thoughts to birth, to be a seed, to give you a birth of an idea, something that you could follow, something that you can prove. So if you don't have another question, if you don't mind, I could just try to finish.
No, I do have another question. I wanted a little dialogue with you, if you don't mind. I won't take too long. But I'm going to ask you some simple questions. I won't deal with it. Some things can you tell us when the Greeks first come into Africa, the first Europeans come into Egypt? What year was it?
We can. I mean, that's not part of my study, but we can look it up. We know that how can I say, you have the Persians in Egypt, the Cambyses.
Were these African?
Okay. No, all life forms derive from Africa. So there are entities that have derived from Africa. They have admixed. They have different phenotypes, different structures. But they are the Homo sapien has survived. It's just the Homo sapien has different genes.
No, I'm talking about after the Ice Age. If you deal with Diop, civilization and barbarism, and if Europe was under ice up until around everything above the 51st parallel was under ice from 135,000 years ago until about 11,000 years ago, which means when Europeans form in the environment of Europe and come out of that, when they reach Egypt, it would have only been
okay. So here's the thing.
All these forms are derived from African people who are the mothers and fathers of it, but they are not derived on the continent of Africa. They come back into Africa. And what I was trying to ask you is that when the Europeans come into Africa, all the pyramids and all of the great understanding of the universe and everything has already been built, explored, and erected, so that's an African formulation. And Europeans, well, look, we don't really have time to get into all this, but go ahead and finish up.
Well, there's a framework. There's a framework in which we use to understand these type of things. So first of all, when you say Europeans, They're not
White folk.
okay. So we're talking about Eurasians,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
now we're talking at this particular point. There was a time period where there was Neanderthal and Homo sapien, right? And the Neanderthal and the Homo sapien mixed, and these are human species, and they were able to mix. And then there's an admixture, and this happened in where we know is Canaan, and this happened possibly around in the area of Spain when when the groups from Africa was able to come out and mix with the Homo sapiens would mix with the Neanderthals. Now there is uh, a above species, which is Homo heidelbergensis, and Homo heidelbergensis seem to give birth to a form of a group of people in Africa, Homo rhodesia, and then inside Europe, outside of Africa, those heidelbergensis gave birth to Homo neanderthalis, and the Homo neanderthalis and the Homo sapien, they intermix. The problem with Cheikh Diop's work, Cheikh Diop at the time that he wrote his book didn't have. He's a scientist, so he didn't have the structure of the gene and the DNA. He didn't have that, so he could not deal with the fact of admixture. So he didn't deal with admixture because he didn't have to prove it. So he talked about the Grimaldi man. So he talked about the Grimaldi man changing because of climate, not changing because of admixture. So that is just it's not that he was wrong. It's just that he just didn't have the technology to go further. But he sensed that he should because that's when he was trying to study melanin and things like that. But the Africans, we're not. I don't like when people try to make the African continent divine. I showed how culture flowed down from the mountains from South Africa all the way down, and culture followed. But it doesn't mean that Africans couldn't learn from other groups of people, because that's just learning, right? We're not no divine, know everything. We got conquered. We there's something that we didn't we were not prepared for. We're not prepared for the warfare of these other groups of people that came in, and so we ultimately found ourselves conquered, and then we killed ourselves from within. One of the things I talk about makes a lot of people really upset, right? Is that even as great as the Egyptian religion was, it was faults in the ancient Egyptian religion or that destroyed ancient Egypt. This overemphasis on the afterlife and a group of people, priests, making that the power of Egypt instead of the power being in the collective work and ethics of ancient Egypt. So the resources of building the pyramids and those type of things, though they were symbolic and they seem to be very great, but the fact of the matter is that it didn't contribute to the expansion. We could have built walls, we could have built forts, we could have built better weapons. We were able to recover so many times when we were fighting the Hekakasud and the Amu, the Asiatics, the Hittites. We were able to survive for a while. But North Africa was being seeded by the Phoenicians, and that became Carthage. They enslaved the Afri people, and then it's this conflict of ultimately the attack from North Africa to Inner Africa, the African not needing to unify because the space was so big and vast. So the Europeans was able to, not the Europeans, but those groups of people were able to conquer pockets of Africans, large pockets of Africans over a long period of time. So you have Rome, but then you have Carthage, right? And Carthage fighting Rome, and then accumulating and then ultimately at the end of the day, the worst of it was the impact of the Arabs' invasion of Egypt. The Arabs' invasion of Egypt, which Dr. John Henry Clarke wrote a forward to a book with Butler. That began a major downfall because now African people began to embrace Islam, and Islam, conquered Egypt from the Romans, right? And the Greeks and the Romans conquered it from them, but then they went down into Nubia, and then there was this Bach Treaty where they over 500 years they were able to convince lots of Africans through the trade routes to become to gravitate to this religion, which was a foreign religion that was over large portions of Africa, and these people. They were into the resources. They were more interested in the resources of Africa. So they went deeper into Africa, and every time they went, they spread their religion. And so Africa has no friends, as Dr. John Henry Clarke says. We thought that they were friends. But this is way out of the issue of quantum physics and what I was talking about.
Okay, I'm going to let you finish up. We've been at it for a couple hours. Well, we haven't been at it. I've been giving you the space. I've been listening.
Thank you for giving me the space. I appreciate it.
No. I invited you on because I knew you had something to say, and I wanted to listen at it. So,
I'm gonna try to finish up shortly. I just wanted to make the point on science, right? The history. Right. Dr. John Henry Clarke, John Jackson, Chancellor Williams, they describe specifically with the destruction of African civilization. So I don't have to. They're my teachers. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give the listeners a concept of thoughts that created science and quantum physics, right? Particularly in this case, quantum physics, skipping some other physics. So I'm giving you the text in ancient Egypt. From different places. You are Noon, the great, who settles upon the fields, letting the earth live with your waters. Yours is the sky, yours is earth, yours is another world, yours are the waters, and yours are air within them. That's what makes it claim you without tiring. My concept is I try to go from the elementary forces, and now I'm into the area of man and the earth. So now they're talking about the quantum material in earth. And I talked about the quantum material in man. Okay, so good. I'm getting ready to close. So here's a picture of the Akdad, the Kemenu, in the context of the Nayid or other cosmology. So you have Khnum, he's getting to what exists, Lord of what exists. You're getting another a king. Seems like he has particles, and he's rulership over the particle. You have, it looks like Hathor. You have a king and a speaker. Then you have the Kemenu and the City of Eight. These are texts that tell us on the bottom, or texts that tell us what are the properties of the Kemenu, right? Because you see that they're listed, and then they describe their particles and properties. So we don't have to guess. It's the Kemenu in relationship to life and death on the top format. So even though there's earthly life and death, basically this is saying that the Kemenu are existing even there in the raising of Osiris. So you see a Set and Nebhed, and you see the kite that they create to get his sperm above him. But you see the Kimino involved in this process. Second peer, you see Set with Horus. All of this is a result of forces.
Oh, thank you so much, baby.
So then on this particular slide, another group where the Kimino are, another source. Kimino is here, source, and another source. So I'm giving you sources more so than I'm telling you what it is. I want to do, I'm closing with some thoughts about a lesser science. Some thoughts on Genesis 1 and 2, Egyptian Cosmology by Hofmeyr. This is an important document because in this document, he now looks at the Bereset, the Genesis, and he begins to pose Egyptian thought with Christian thought. Not that the Christians stole from ancient Egypt, but it was syncretism. They began to use some of the aspects. So it says the Egyptian expression used to refer to primeval time or the beginning of the creation is Sep Tepi, first occasion of time of creation. The root of Tepi comes from Tep, which is literally the head. The terminology, while not etymologically related, is related conceptually, and both creation marked the beginning of the time. In Genesis, 4 cosmic phenomena, so they don't have 8, they have 4, or mentioned that are apparently present, and that's Tahu, Walvova, and Hoseka, and Tehom. So ancient Egypt has 8. The Judeo-Christian has 4, and those 4 line up to our 8, right? But the 8 occurred before. So they break it down, they synchronize it, syncretism, and they break it down to 4. So then he poses Nun is Tehom, Keku is Hoseka, Hehu is Tahu, Wavova, and Amun is Ruah Elohim. So we can see how groups of people are learning from people, but the initial, the concepts of Nun, Keku, Hehu, and Amun, Nun, Nunek, Keket, Hehehet, and Amun, or 3,000 to 4,000 years way older than when the Genesis story comes into being, and no matter where, but there's even a more problem with that. Not that these are philosophical concepts. Where's the mathematics? Where's the science? So then I'm gonna pass through this so I can get you to a point where it's really important. So I have to say this. Unfortunately, many people that our audience rely on can't count to 10. I just have to make this statement. The ability not to count to 10 in the Meta shows a weakness, and it's conceptually to count to 10. Many of you who follow. Counting to 10, like the uniliterals, are the basis of Kemet thought. If you encounter a person that said they didn't know Kemet science and wants to teach and they can't count to 10, or they can't give you the alphabet, if they can't, run from them. The hell with spirituality if you can't do these things. These types of people don't know what the hell they're talking about, and I would recommend, I'm only doing this, if you're going to learn Meta, learn it from Dr. Ricchetti, and she is still here. Learn it, and her students, Dr. Obanga, his students, Infadisi Jehunames, who's a student of Dr. Ricchetti, Dr. Mario Beatty, who's a student of Dr. Obanga, right? Dr. Malana Karenga is good. Dr. Obadeli Cambone, who's in Ghana, learning. Some of the young people I like, Jonathan Owens, Netta Neb, I mean, Infadisi is local. You can ask him questions. And if you want to get some advice, fine. If it's not on his list and you encounter somebody, just because they wrote a book on Amazon, run from them, right? If you learn it from the right people, you can get all tools that you know to learn what they call the Wa Enoch. That's the path of life, right? And you can enter the Perach anywhere and understand the Tep Hesed. What that means, It may mean something to you, it may not mean anything to you, but the fact of the matter is the Watanank is the path of life, is not following the Pert Imher rule, which is the afterlife, right? So I know you people were mad, but I got to do it. I gotta point a young generation into another thing. Here is counting to 10. I'm not going to spend any time on it, but the most important thing is that you see these concepts. Why that we talked about. We saw the 8, the Kiminu, the Pasadu, right? And so some of these things we've talked about in our conversation on here. But learning mathematics is important to understanding, and understanding the language is important to understanding what Egyptian thought is. The numerals are meta-nature words that are used to say the same thing. Y is one singular, right? You're probably not going to find too much in the culture Y nature, unless it's meaning it doesn't mean the only one nature. It might mean the particular nature. You might find a pi nature, which is the unique nature, right? Sin means 2, like double. So Sin is your brother. Sinet is your double. She is your sister. She is just like you, but she is your sister. Even if she's your wife, she is your sister. She is your equal double. The Akdad or the Kiminu, the 8 hay netters, the Indian is the 9. Here's my chart on the alphabet. Take a class in meta-nature. But these essential sounds form the biliterals, form the triliterals. It is what you call perfect formulas, right? The uniliterals not only make sounds, they do operations. They do logical operations that are akin to math. Oh, I'm almost finished. I would recommend these books: Essays in Ancient Egyptian Studies, Jacob Crothers, African Philosophy by Carruthers, Infidici's book, Spiritual Warriors and Healers, Dr. Kala Khamenei's book, Spirituality Before Religion, Spirituality is Unseen Science, Science is Seen Spirituality. I think it is a great book. On the bottom is you can go to medunature.com and you can buy Dr. Ricchetti's books and or take her classes, right?
Yeah.
There are other books that I can recommend that are African, if you can find it, by Aunt Mira and other stuff. And there's European authors. There's Gardner's Grammar. There's a number of books, but these are the books that, if you want a African basis, if you want an African start, and then you can become an Egyptologist or a what's the other word? Expert in hieroglyphics. You could go to the Europeans, because that's what you learn: Egyptology and hieroglyphics. If you want to learn Medu-Neter, go to the Africans.
Reggie, one question. I'm gonna let you go. You talked about a species, a human species that comes after Homo sapien.
No, it comes before Homo sapien sapien. Heidelbergensis gave birth to Homo neanderthalis and Homo rhodesia, and there were still other groups of species in Africa that the Homo rhodesia admixed with.
Okay.
There's no species outside of Homo sapien, except for we have different phenotypes because of our connection with the Neanderthal. The Tapvideo, you can read it. I talked about it in the last episode, but it is the way that we calculate and understand the calculation of things. It could be in philosophy, meaning it got to make sense, and it could be in mathematics and stuff like that. So this is the Tapvideo, the correct method of the divine universal law. It is a hand balance, then it is not crooked. If it is a hand balance, then it's not crooked. If it's a stand balance, it is not biased. I'm giving you this because this is in philosophy, and in speech. Then it's the Tapvideo that deals with the calculation, the rule of calculating the results of things, the knowledge of everything that is of all obscure and of all mysteries, of all difficulties, and this is the concept of the Tapvideo, because our philosophy and mathematics are not calculating, are aspects of the same thing. Our speech should be mathematical, it should be logical, it should make sense, it should be balanced, it should be free from effect, and it should calculate out. If you are, here's an example, the ancient Egyptian Medu Neter, it can contain a mathematical language. So I'm not going to really go into this, but I took it from ancient Egyptian mathematics. We're examining the problems, 4950 of the Wren Mathematical Papyrus by Sarah Chanley. And she's basically here doing a calculation of fields where the ancient Egyptian is doing mathematics within Medu Neter, right? And you could find that in the Wren Mathematical Papyrus. And guess what? Brother Clemson, except for questions, I am finishing. I'm Brother Reggie Mabry. That is, if you felt that you learned from this presentation, that is my Cash App, Dollar Reginald Mabry. Do I have anything else after this? No. So basically, what I've tried to do, because you particularly asked me a particular question, you wanted to know about the quantum world when it relates to ancient Egypt. I very rarely talk about it. I very rarely talk completely about it. I've showed you in the past where I have talked about it in constructing my video Secret of the Ark with Dr. Jeffries, and I've presented, but I really don't do this presentation unless people ask. I will probably do it in another form on Black News 102 Sarnetta Studios, because they support me there. I mean, you have a good audience, but that I'm more supported there, and you know, our people, in order for us to do the work, we have to feel supported. So what other questions that you have? And I hope
Reggie, I just want to
I can't hear you.
Oh, here we are. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Elder Clemson, Minister Clemson Brown. Yes, I hear you.
I said I want to thank you. It's been a good dialogue. There's a lot more that we can go into, and I'm just really scratching the surface. But I wanted to hear you and hear you out, so that I could, you know, you learn by listening. If a man and his woman really want to, and let me change that, because maybe this is not appropriate. If two people, but I will say a man and woman, because we have so much confusion between one another. But and this is what my wife and I have always tried to do, is really listen at what it is that bothers each other. Because if you're really concerned and you want to find an answer to the problems that you have, you got to know what's bothering me, and I got to know what's bothering you. And the only way I'm going to know that is that I really listen at you and have empathy and compassion, and really want to understand what it is that I'm doing that is bothering you, and then I can make the change. So among our people, I think you said one thing that I want to lift up, which is critical, and that is that whatever you imagine, you can bring into being. That is so critical for us to visualize the kind of world that we want to see. And we can model that from the world our ancestors have built in the past. And they left us with the principles by which a civilized people can live in peace and harmony, justice, and truth. And that is my art. If we live my art, first with ourselves and then with one another, then we can bring in the kind of world that we would like to see. So I'm gonna let you go. Thank you again. Peace. Looking
Well,
forward.
we need mod, but we have to recognize that there is EastFed. Mod and EastFed are a counterbalance. So that means it allows you to learn. Uh, Again, my purpose was to talk to you specifically about not morality, not talking about morality. I was talking about science. I was talking about the roots of ancient Egyptian ideas that the Europeans have made it theirs with looking at all these Pharisees and all of these European scholars and discluding the African. So I was trying to do a service in the context of the concepts of quantum physics, which Dr. Oyepo is an expert on. What I was trying to do is not do the mathematics and the science, which he is an expert on. I was just trying to hopefully for people who are contemplating this to understand the philosophical, deep philosophical concepts that we could footnote, that we could find, that's in the text, that's verifiable. We have a mythology, but we have a written mythology that we can find. We don't have a fantasy story of these holy books, right? We actually know, we actually have things in duplicate and triplicates of Africans actually contemplating big ideas and small ideas, and even small ideas and forces and fields and how things come together. So I was hoping that our audience could understand the deep differences of African thought and religious thoughts, and even the religious thoughts within our own community. And my whole thing is spirituality without calculating is crazy. Yes, you should be able to calculate your spirituality, and if you're calculating spirituality, you should be able to find the sources, and you should have language tools to be able to portray this not from the gift of your gab, but from the text of your ancestors who lived and died, so that you can get it from you. So I am, but if you want to listen, yeah, I am. I have some problems with our people that we need to solve. We need to solve. There's difference between ego without help, right? But there is ego where people don't want to be wrong, don't want to be criticized, and make money off of things like spirituality. We should be making money off of our innovation and solving problems instead of making money off of our spirituality. And if you are going to do that, then you should know that there are large groups of people who are now have access to the materials and can verify it. So there you go. I'm for me, Mr. Clemson Brown, I always put myself in harm's way, and because I'm just telling the truth. I'm just saying that our people, we like stories, we like mythology, we like prophets, we like preachers, we like priests, we like to champion what other people say. But in order for us to survive against this European, we need skill sets. So thank you for your time. I've been Brother Reggie. This has been Transatlantic Productions. I am so happy to be able to contribute, and I'll probably be doing a similar lecture on other channels. So thank you so much for your time.
All right. Peace and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're
King,
still live.
I,
Just end the stream. Just end the stream.
I don't know how to end it. Can you end it for me?
No, can you call Darnell?
Yeah, he's on the line now. Yeah, King Son.
Hold up.
Okay. It's HE1. Oh boy. Yeah, it's HE1J77.
What I do, Minister Brown, is teach you the symbol "man know thyself,"
Yeah.
where it is,